What's up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have Hurricane Erin that is starting to re-strengthen. We're back up to Category 4 status at this current point. Winds of 140 miles per hour. And we also have this area of interest that is chugging towards the Leeward Islands and the rest of the Lesser Antilles and the Caribbean as well, that now has been seeing more and more chances of development down the road. So we have a lot to talk about today with both of these systems. So let's go ahead and dive right into it right here. Starting off, our obvious start will be with Hurricane Erin, Major Hurricane Erin. As a matter of fact, here is the public advisory we have for you right here. Maximum sustained winds are 140 miles per hour. It's currently minimum central pressure is 937 millibars. It's moving west-northwest at 10 miles per hour, so it has pretty much slowed down quite a bit as it's starting to make that turn more so towards the northwest. Right here. This is what we got for you right here. This system has really been expanding in size too. Hurricane force winds extend outward 80 miles from the center, and tropical storm force winds extend outward 230 miles from the center. And we have tropical storm warnings in effect for the Turks and Caicos and southeastern Bahamas, and the tropical storm watch is in effect for the central Bahamas as well. And we will show you those in just a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit of the discussion to see what's going on and kind of what the NHC does anticipate will happen moving forward. So here's what we have for you right here for the NHC. Erin continues to have an impressive cloud pattern on satellite imagery, with the eye surrounded by very cold cloud temperatures and numerous convecting band features. A considerable amount of lightning activity is occurring over the eastern portion of the circulation. When you see lightning in hurricanes, that's indicative of pretty quick intensification right there. Observations from both NOAA and Air Force Hurricane Hunter aircraft indicate some strengthening this morning, which with the minimum central pressure dropping to around 935 millibars and peak 700 millibar flight level winds, supporting an intensity close to 120 knots, which is 140 miles per hour. Rain bands over Erin's southwest quadrant will continue to cause tropical storm force winds over portions of the southeastern Bahamas right here. Erin's forward speed is slowed down to about 8 or 9 knots as well. Although there hasn't been much motion this morning, the hurricane again wobbled to the west-northwest. At that current point, it's expected to continue to make that turn as well. And then this is kind of interesting as well. Given Erin's impressive deep convection and strong mid-level outflow, it is expected to strengthen some more by later today. The ship's guidance diagnoses some northerly shear over the system, which could counteract the other conducive factors in the environment. The official intensity forecast is near or over or a little above the simple and corrected model guidance. The system is expected to remain a major hurricane through the middle part of this week, and this is a big important part too, because Erin's wind field will expand as a result and result in rough ocean conditions through much of the western Atlantic. It should be noted that 34 to 50 knot wind speed probabilities beyond 36 hours in the text and graphical outlooks are likely underestimating this risk right here. So here's what we got right here. Expected to strengthen to 145 miles per hour. Right here as well. Matter of fact, the Outer Banks of North Carolina definitely should be monitoring the progress of this system as well. As we can show you from the cone right here, we have tropical storm warnings in effect for the Turks and Caicos and parts of the Bahamas right here. Tropical storm watch is in effect for parts of the central Bahamas right here. There's actually mandatory evacuations for parts of the Outer Banks. I believe Hatteras, there is a mandatory evacuation because of the rough seas and potential surge, as well as tropical storm force winds as well. So that is something you need to keep in mind. Too. So that's something we're going to want to pay attention, because even though the system is not expected to make landfall, there are going to be impacts to land. We're already seeing that in the Bahamas. We've seen that in Puerto Rico. We've seen that in the Leeward Islands. We've going to see that in Bermuda as well. So you're going to want to keep a very close eye on that, especially if you're along the coast, particularly in the Outer Bank chain of North Carolina. Those can flood pretty easily from rough seas and all of that. So you're definitely going to want to pay attention to that as well moving forward, especially as the system's hurricane and tropical storm force winds greatly expand in size. But by the time we get to about Thursday, it's expected to complete that turn and then just make a beeline out into the subtropical Atlantic and slowly weaken as well, potentially transition to an extratropical cyclone too. So that is something we're going to have to pay attention to as well. But Erin is not the only threat that we're watching right here, because we have another wave right behind that could actually cause a direct impact towards land than Erin did. And we're going to want to watch this, especially in the long term, because the Lesser Antilles are going to see some potential impacts. Same with the Greater Antilles, and potentially all the way up to Florida. You're going to want to watch this as well. First of all, this wave right here is further to the south than Erin, and its trajectory is further to the south. Instead of moving north of the Antilles, it's potentially going to be moving through them. So you're going to want to watch out for that as well. But here is the advisory right here. They've really turned up the chances since yesterday on this. But here we go. A tropical wave located over the eastern tropical Atlantic is producing limited disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development of the system, and a tropical depression could form towards the end of the week. This system should move westward to west-northwestward at around 20 miles per hour across the central tropical Atlantic and approach the vicinity of the Leeward Islands on Friday. 10% chance in the next 48 hours, 60% in the next 7 days. So those probabilities have really started to turn up. I believe at this point yesterday, we were at 30%. I was at 20% when I recorded the video yesterday, but now we're up to 60% for tropical development right there. So that is something you're definitely going to want to take very seriously if you're on the Leeward Islands and in Puerto Rico, as well as in the Dominican Republic at least. So those are all factors we're paying attention to, and we'll keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But now moving on to satellite imagery, we'll go ahead and start with Hurricane Erin just to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. We are seeing increased convection starting to fire up, especially on the eastern side of it. You're not really seeing that much of an eye feature that's starting to pop out from this. It's mostly clouded right here as it's still trying to consolidate, still trying to organize at least further up. In the immediate vicinity in the clouded eye, it's still pretty organized underneath all this cloud mass right here, but it's still something you're going to want to pay attention to and keep in mind as well. In the meantime, though, you are noticing more and more of impacts towards the Turks and Caicos, as well as parts of the Bahamas as well. And as the system moves more so towards the northwest, it's going to be impacting parts of the central Bahamas too, so you're going to want to watch that as well. This system has been a very big situation that we've had to deal with for quite some time. Ever since it came off the coast of Africa, we've been watching this, and this is why right here, because it's an intense system. And one wrong move could cause even worse impacts to a lot of people in the Antilles and potentially in North Carolina as well. So that's something you're going to want to pay attention to as well. Looking at seeing if there's any recon that's currently in there right now. There is some en route right here. We had some earlier actually that finished about a few hours ago actually. They found the 937 millibar system right here. They were really putting a lot of drop zones in the eye walls and the eye as well. Looking at the latest eye drop right here, 937 millibars at 6 knots. So that's kind of how they got that pressure right there. But recon is still looking into Erin right now, and you're going to want to pay attention to that as well. But let's go ahead now and show you some forecast models indicating where this may be going. Let's start with the H-Wharf. With Erin right here, this is we have the 12Z that has come out. It's starting to come out more actually for the next 4 days. We'll have enough for that, but here we go. The H-Wharf has the system continuing to be in the 930s, maybe at the in the lower 940s in the next day or so. Looking at main sea level pressure and wind, still looking at Category 3 to Category 4 intensity according to the H-Wharf as the system starts to make that turn to the north. But this system greatly expands in size right here. The hurricane force winds go pretty much from a more compact system to largely expanding out quite a bit. I think that's another 100 plus miles or so. These are going to expand out in the next couple of days, and you're going to want to watch this. This becomes a Category 2 hurricane by the time we get to 4 days out or so, and then Category 1 eventually after that as it moves deeper into the subtropics right here. But that is something you are going to want to pay attention to. That expansion of the wind field is also going to expand the tropical storm force winds and potentially put North Carolina and Bermuda in the light of fire with potentially how large this system will be. So you're going to want to pay very close attention to that too. Let's go ahead and show you the HMON model as well. Here's the HMON pulling up for you right here. HMON really puts more of these islands in the line of fire right here, with potentially stronger tropical storm force winds right here as it starts to make that turn to the northwest and greatly expand in size as well, going to 48 miles per hours out. We're already at major, or still close to major hurricane strength, although the HMON really does want the system to weaken by the middle part of this week, while the NHC and other models do want this to remain relatively strong. We'll have to watch and see what happens going forward, but the HMON does want the Outer Banks to get tropical storm force winds, and I would not be surprised if we see a tropical storm watch or tropical storm warning for those islands in the next a couple of days or so, maybe the next couple of updates even, so you're going to want to watch that as well. But then as the system starts to move out to sea right here into the subtropics, it begins to transition into an extratropical cyclone while still being a very powerful hurricane right here at hurricane strength, rather. Looking at the radar, yeah, this is definitely going to start transitioning to an extratropical cyclone by 5 days out, so you're going to want to pay attention to that as well. And then going back here, let's go ahead and show you the halves A run. The halves A going to the main sea level pressure and winds right here. Still major hurricane strength for quite some time moving forward, although the halves A does have the system kind of weakening, but it does put more of North Carolina and like the Outer Banks and potentially eastern parts of North Carolina along the coast and on the line of fire with this, so I would not, again, be surprised for tropical storm watches to be issued with this. But as this starts to finally move out to sea, it's going to be weakening into an extratropical cyclone, and from then on out, we'll have to see what happens with that. So that's your halves A model. Looking at the halves B right here, halves B still pretty compact right here, expected to increase in pressure, expected to weaken a little bit, still close to major hurricane strength, about 60 hours out, and then as it approaches North Carolina right here, winds potentially on the islands and inland in eastern North Carolina, so you're going to want to take those very seriously. And then the system moves out to sea, begins transitioning to an extratropical cyclone, and that's the last we will hear of that. So that's kind of the latest update we have with Hurricane Erin. Still a very powerful major hurricane, expected to intensify even more today, so you're going to want to watch that as well. But then we have our other area of interest that's starting to brew in parts of the main development region, that could actually impact even more land than Erin did, and potentially be a pretty powerful system at that as well, given the conditions it'll be moving through. So with that being said, let's go ahead and show you some of these conditions that we're both looking at with Erin as well as this area of interest. Starting off with the global sea temperatures, Erin's still in an area of about 29 degrees Celsius waters right there. Not particularly too worried about it running out of water until we get to about 40 degrees north. But by that point, it'll be transitioning to that extratropical state. So it'll mainly be using baroclinic forcing to maintain its intensity. But looking at the main development region, again, noticing a couple things right here. 27 degrees Celsius, that's where the system is right now, at least where the center of it is, that we're going to want to watch. And as it moves further to the west, it gets up to 28 degrees Celsius, potentially up to 29 degrees Celsius as it moves closer to the Lesser Antilles. And then as it potentially moves just south or crashes into them, still you're looking at, especially in the Greater Antilles and those areas around there, 29 to 30 degrees Celsius water temperatures. And you have to understand as well, this is going to be in areas that were untapped by Hurricane Erin as well. You are noticing a little bit of a cold wake starting to emerge over here in parts of the southwestern Atlantic, but that's not going to particularly last that long. It's still like mid-August, and those water temperatures are going to quickly recover for the rest of the season. And also, this wave is going to be moving south of that cold wake as well, so that's something you're going to want to keep in mind as well. And especially as it moves further to the west in later forecasts, it's going to be moving into even warmer water and potentially a greater risk for pretty explosive intensification right there. So that's your water temperatures that we're watching right there as well. Looking at the ocean heat content, OHC continues to be pretty strong across a lot of these areas. OHC, where this system is at right now, about 25 to 30, maybe even 40 in some areas of the ocean heat content. And then as it moves closer to the leewards and the rest of the Greater Antilles, you're seeing about 50 starting to pop up, then 70, and then potentially up to 100 as it's approaching those islands right there. So you're going to want to pay attention to that as this wave starts to organize and develop as it approaches closer to land over here, and then it's expected to move towards the Greater Antilles, and let's say this heads towards the Gulf region. It's going to be entering an area of about 100 OHC off the coast of Cuba, and if it moves just to the east of Florida, like some models are predicting, it's going to be still in an area of 125 to 150 OHC around the Bahamas. So ultimately, this looks like a lose-lose type of scenario right here, in terms of how strong this could get and in terms of who could get impacted right here. So that's something you're going to want to keep in mind, and we'll keep you updated on that. Going ahead and taking a quick gander at the wind shear right here. Looking at going ahead and using the European, and we'll go to the North Atlantic, and we'll go ahead and switch that to 200 to 850 millibar shear, not the anomalies, just the regular shear in general. Here's what we have for you right here. We'll go ahead and use the 0Z to kind of illustrate this. Erin's going to be moving off right here, and I know there is a little concern from some forecasts that maybe the shear could hinder it early on, but as Erin starts to move further to the north, you do notice that a lot of its outflow and a lot of its shear starts to get caught into this jet right here that's currently moving through New England right here. So that's really not going to be that big of an issue, especially in the long term as the system approaches land. But in the immediate vicinity right here, there's really no shear to talk about, at least in the immediate area right here. Yes, there is a little bit of shear to its west right here, but as long as it stays underneath this touch right here, this tropical upper trough right here, it's going to be fine. It's going to be in a pocket of low wind shear. It kind of gradually gets act together, get organized, and develop pretty quickly as it gets to better and better conditions right here. This shear is going to go away right here, as you can see right here, and you start to notice that shear pocket remains pretty consistent right here. And I will say later down the road, there will be, as this system organizes and develops, there will be kind of quote-unquote shear surrounding the system, but that's going to be mainly the upper-level winds that this system is providing. And that's kind of why it looks like there's going to be unfavorable shear moving forward, especially as it starts to intensify as it gets closer to land. So you do want to keep that in mind as well. But ultimately, this is going to be a pretty interesting situation that we have right here. There's not going to be that much shear, and whatever shear Erin is going to provide, like I said, is going to get caught into this jet right here, and I would not be too worried about that in terms of tropical development. I would be concerned. In terms of that. I mean, in terms of tropical development, not in terms of impacts. I'm still very worried about the impacts, but in terms of the system organizing and developing, that's an area I'm not kind of too worried about being a factor that could weaken it or not be a factor against it, mainly because a lot of that shear is going to get pushed out anyway. So that's what we have for you with that. Let's go ahead and look at the moisture component, because that is going to be pretty important in this here. And even still, where this area of interest is, it's going to be in a pocket of pretty high moisture right here as it moves towards the Antilles right there. So you're going to want to pay attention to that as well. It's going to be in a pretty solid moisture pocket, and then it's going to start potentially producing its own moisture due to convection, all of that stuff, by the time it gets towards the Leeward Islands. So you're going to want to pay attention to that moving forward. Now let's go ahead and show you some forecast models, because this is continuing to get pretty interesting, to say the very least. Here's what we have from the GFS. The GFS has actually been the most consistent with this model, actually. The GFS 12Z actually has this system developing east of the Lesser Antilles and moving through the Leeward Islands as a tropical storm. Same with Puerto Rico. As well, 999 millibar, potentially 60 mile per hour tropical storm. Then it moves through Hispaniola. It survives Hispaniola, actually. Then it moves north of Cuba right here and potentially impacts Florida, like South Florida is a 968 millibar system. Keep in mind, this is August 26th. By the time we're talking about this is over a week out. So please do take this with a grain of salt right here, and we'll keep you updated on that. But still, the system moves through Florida. According to this right here, there's definitely going to be a stronger ridge that's going to help this drive further to the west and impact more people as well, especially if it moves just off the coast of Cuba over here. It's going to intensify at a pretty fast rate and cause potentially the Bahamas to be to watch out. Florida gonna need to watch out for that, and potentially even the southeastern United States. So that's your GFS model right here. Looking at the Canadian run as well, you see Erin over here. Then you have this wave starting to organize and develop as it moves towards the Leeward Islands. Does get pretty consolidated. Then it moves through Puerto Rico, and then the CMC does want this to move a bit further to the north, which I do find is kind of interesting right here. So we'll have to watch that. But still, models are catching on to this. Let's look at the icon right here. Once again, looking at that, having the system kind of remaining an open wave until it gets past the Leeward Islands right here. But still, you're seeing these operational runs and the ensembles catching up to this scenario, and the NHC has pretty much ramped up the chances with it, so we'll keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're closing the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you want to help out, hang out, or ask us questions, join the Storms United Discord server. Link to that is in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.